Hello there, we are here at the Fastmarkets Live Lounge, brought to you by Aquatech, and we're recording this episode live from the Lithium Supply and Battery Raw Materials Conference in Las Vegas. Now, I'm Georgia Tolley, and I'm joined today by Jay Keener. He is the CEO of Altillion. Jay, of course, is a founder with a bold mission. He wants to change how we think about extracting and processing critical minerals. Now, he's leading a company that's bringing fresh thinking and chemistry-led solutions to the challenges that are facing lithium brine processing. But beyond the tech, Jay's story is one of perseverance, curiosity, and building something that can really scale. Jay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to start with your story first, and then we'll move on to Altillion. What has been the journey that brought you to this point?
So growing up, I was big into mission work, and I became passionate about water issues in developing countries. In college, I studied chemistry, knew that I wanted to go into something related to water, had the opportunity to join a startup company that one of my chemistry professors started to commercialize some of his research while I was still in school. And that was a water-focused company. And so I started working with his business while I was still in school, joined full-time right after graduating. And that kicked off this career-long effort of taking new tech from the bench to pilot, getting it in the field on customer locations, working through scale-up issues. And that's a career that's taken me around the world, living overseas for a few years, working on projects in many different countries, mostly around oil field brines. And for the last 6 or 7 years prior to Altillion, a lot of onshore North America brine management around recycling, chemical treatment, filtration, infrastructure, things like that. And so taking tech from early stage, actually getting it in the field, executing and scaling it up is what really most of my career has been focused on.
You really hit the ground running there, and that is fascinating because I know that it's one of the hardest things to do in many ways, to make that transition from, a project that works in an academic setting to make it work in a real world setting. Now, You've said in the past, and I've read about this, that Altillion isn't just a lithium company. You call it a critical minerals company. So what do you mean by that specifically?
Yeah, I'd say we're on the technology side of the industry,
okay,
right? And so things like DLE or direct lithium extraction get a lot of focus in the industry around lithium brines. A lot of technologies in the space are very focused on material science for a specific metal.
Okay.
So direct lithium extraction is mostly innovation specific to lithium. Altillion's a bit unique in that our innovation that we've developed and are commercializing is an implementation process that can use many different types of material science and chemistries to target different metals or provide different types of functionality in different applications. And so we're not limited to one specific innovation for lithium. We can adapt the process for other metals, and we're actively doing that in other metals markets.
And do you do that all in one go, or you're not trying to extract two different metals at the same time? You would diversify the process to target one metal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we think about brines broadly. We think about brines very holistically from a kind of valorization standpoint, and so a lot of focus on lithium brines and lithium from brine. We spend quite a bit of time around oil and gas brines as an example, and so there's a number of different minerals. If you're pre-treating for one, you can stack different things on top of that, but our solution would be specifically configured for one metal, and if we wanted to do another metal, it would be a sequence, not at the same time.
What was the moment when you realized that this idea had legs, so like commercial legs, that there was a real opportunity?
Yeah, I think early on what drew us to the foundation of this solution is that it's built on components or technologies that are already commercialized in other applications. And so when the idea was originally incubated, what really drew me to the idea was the fact that we're building on things that have already been deployed at scale. And it's about proving that new integration and scaling that integration. And so that was the first thing that drew me to it. And then as I started to look, my background in oil field brines is not metals and mining, right? But as I started to learn more about the intersection of oil field brines and other metals and mining related brines, I started to see how these technologies and the chemistries available in mining could really come together and actually do what the original incubation team thought it could.
Okay, so starting a business in this space really isn't easy, and it sounds like you're introducing a new idea, a new concept. What's been the toughest challenge so far?
Yeah, it's I'd say it's a little bit cliche, maybe too easy of an answer, but market conditions around lithium
tough
have been the toughest.
Yeah.
I mean, so timing wise, we formally created this business towards the end of 2023.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, we're catching the falling knife a little bit in terms of lithium prices. I would say the toughest part for us has been that market condition. I think in general, we were at the tail end of when capital was really flowing into projects and moving things to pilot and demo scale. And so we're innovating something that the market needs, and we're getting validation on that. But we're doing that in a market condition that's been quite depressed. And so just navigating that has really been the overall toughest challenge for us.
So I imagine there's a fair amount of enthusiasm for the technology, but not very much money to implement it potentially.
Exactly. There's the timing risk on projects, right? I think we've seen at this conference, common theme around everyone is, okay, when is the capital going to start flowing again?
Yeah. And there's so much cautious optimism here. And well, there's not just cautious optimism. There's also certainty that it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of time.
Yes.
But no one really knows what that time scale is, and it's about surviving and until that comes around. It's that certainty. And there is a lot of noise around innovation in the industry at the moment. How do you know what sort of separates, what's real from nonsense, substance from spin?
I've said this before in other discussions. I think it comes back to the data.
Yeah.
So I think data tells a story. I also think seeing the real pathway to execution and scale up is the critical thing. There's so much. You mentioned early on the challenge of taking things from the lab to pilot and a lot of times moving things out of academia and into industry. And it's very prevalent to come up with ideas at the lab scale or in academia, or show things in a certain condition that work really well and appear to have promise. But to make that jump to industrial application, industrial data collection, validating that this can go and actually execute in real application, I think that's where you really have to dig deep into different technologies, different types of innovations that people are coming up with. Where is that pathway to actual industrial implementation? And what does the data and the test work and that roadmap really tell you?
And of course, that test work costs money.
It does.
And like we said, there's not much of that around at the moment.
That's right.
Okay, so when it comes to building a company, which is what you've been trying to do and what you have been doing over the last few years successfully, what kind of culture are you keen to create? You're not brand new to it, but you're reasonably new to it. You're reasonably new to having your own company and being an entrepreneur. Have you got a clear path forward for how you'd like your company to look?
Yeah, I do. I have started businesses in the past around oil field brines.
Yeah.
I'd say similar technology stages and scaling those technologies up. And so myself and some of my team that I've done this in the past with are also involved around Altillion. And so we have a little bit of that muscle memory on what it looks like to work through this scale-up process and pilot and demo. And so we're leveraging some of that. And from a cultural perspective, to me, the kinds of things that come in are ensuring that we are encouraging people to ask questions, be creative, try things, but within a framework that is directionally moving in the direction that the technology needs to go for the applications we're pursuing. Mm-hmm. So I would say we really foster a culture of being creative and not micromanaging the way we innovate or the way we collect data or validate or scale. We want our team to be a little bit nimble and a little bit creative, but definitely having that sort of at least alignment on directionally where we're going. That's a really important part of our culture. And I'd say the other for us that is kind of a core cultural component for me is we are sometimes, possibly to a fault, extremely intent on collaborating externally. And so we are truly collaborators more than we are competitors. And so I honestly believe that most companies, especially in nascent industries like this, or at least areas of the industry that are nascent, like lithium, brines, and DLE, there's such an immense capacity for technologies and companies to really come together and figure out where they can bookend around each other and add value to each other. And so that culture of collaboration and just pursuing the most efficient, overall process and path forward is something that is really important to us.
Have you seen that other companies in the sector agree with that? For example, networking at this conference, for example, is there enthusiasm to collaborate, or are people still feeling a bit kind of like, I don't want, my technology is proprietary, I don't want to partner?
We've found a lot of openness to collaboration.
Oh, great.
I would say, there's obviously, there are buckets of technology or areas of these applications where there is clear competition, right? Yeah. Where, sometimes on like DLE, for example, yes, one DLE media versus another DLE media, it's going to be hard for those two companies to figure out how they work together.
Yeah.
But in general, even where there's a bit of overlap in where, one technology, what they may be trying to achieve versus where the next piece of technology that would come after them is trying to start from.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flexibility, and it might be the sign of the times in terms of everyone's trying to figure out how to make projects more economical and bring things together. But there's a lot of flexibility in the market right now for how technology companies are looking at where they can overlap and integrate and find ways to work together, because the lowest cost projects will be the ones that go first, and ultimately that win out when the price drops again in the future.
Yeah.
And so if you're pursuing that movement down the cost curve and you're pursuing financeability of projects, everyone's really looking at how do we piece things together in a way that lets us win this work. And so we find a lot of openness to collaboration.
And is that international collaboration, or does it tend to be country specific?
I'd say it's international.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we, for the most part, I can say for us right now, there's a lot of generally North America collaboration that's happening. But I don't think there's a major geographical limitation on that in terms of the way we're thinking about it or what we're seeing.
I think it's just very exciting at the moment seeing what's happening in North America. There is this real sort of drive to increase lithium production, and it's quite exhilarating to speak to all the companies that are involved in that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so astonishingly, there are still quite a lot of companies who are looking to break into this field, even considering the current market, because they can see the long-term path, shall we say, towards electrification, towards a more sustainable life. If you were going to give advice to others who are looking to break into the sector, what would it be?
I really do think that early validation through very clear and valuable data is I can't emphasize that enough.
I like how you go back to the data. You still have your roots in academia. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's just, data. The data tells the story, and the quality of the data tells the story. And so my advice to people is focus on data, focus on the quality of your data. And I would say early strategic partnerships, as early as you can form strategic partnerships, the earlier the better. But your data will tell a story, and I think it's important that you focus on the quality of that data early.
Okay, let's zoom out 5 years from now. So not next year when we come back for the conference, but 5 years from now. Where would you like to see Altillion?
So 5 years from now for Altillion, I see us commercially producing lithium from brines in terms of where we fit in the flow sheet of an overall brine flow sheet. I also see us commercially producing metals in at least 2 other market verticals. One of those I anticipate will be copper. And there's others that we're looking at, from oil field brines, for example, which fit very much in that sort of market strategy right now. But I see us being a very diversified metals extraction, concentration, purification company, and being commercial in at least 3 different market verticals.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. Like that's big. That's big picture stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, my last question for you, and this is the one that we are asking all our guests on the Live Lounge. What's your biggest takeaway from this year's conference going to be, do you think?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway at the conference this year is that attendance being as high as it is, given the market condition, market pricing, I find that to be extremely indicative of the resilience of the long-term outlook that people have on the industry. Battery metals growth and batteries are still growing annually at a great rate. Batteries and electrification are only going to keep on building as the economy continues to electrify. And so I think this just the attendance at the conference in a market condition like we have right now is a very strong signal for this long-term growth that we're all anticipating, but waiting to see what the timeline tells us.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, a consistency of resilience. That's what I'm going. It's really interesting. What buzzwords? I mean, they're not buzzwords, but the key words that I'm going to come out of this conference with, and I think certainly resilience and patience maybe could be 2 of them. Words. Resilience and patience. Jay, thank you so much. It's been really interesting getting to know you. It's been really interesting getting to know more about Altillion and also your sort of wider views on the market. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Fastmarkets Live Lounge.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
It's been a great pleasure. And thank you to everyone who's been listening on their headphones. Thank you to you listening at home. And remember, if you'd like to watch more of these episodes, you can find them really easily. Just check out any of your podcast platforms. So we're talking Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon. We're also on YouTube. That's where you can find the full videos. All you need to do is check out the Fastmarkets page. And we're also on social media. So that's your opportunity to like, to follow, and to comment. And just before we go, I want to say a huge thanks to Aquatech for sponsoring this series. Also, thanks to you for watching and listening.